Hey, welcome to Film Fanatics, three film geeks discussing movies both new and old. My name is Dan.
My name is Justin.
And I'm Joe.
This week, Josh Brolin attempts to make his way up Everest in 3D. Robert De Niro is Anne Hathaway's intern. Gore director Eli Roth takes us to meet a scary tribe in Green Inferno. Lily Tomlin is Grandma. And in our home media moment, another tribe thriller, The Deadlands. Our double feature of older films this week is Joe's pick to kick off Horror Month, Mimic, and Robert De Niro again in the baseball drama Bang the Drum Slowly in our Oscar A to Z. Too bad we already did the top 5 De Niro.
And I was thinking, Dan,
Yeah.
if we ever get you to watch Apocalypto, maybe we can do our top 5 jungle movies.
Yeah, possibly. Jungle Fever would be in my list.
That'll be the subtitle.
From Spike Lee. All right, first up, though, is Everest. Justin, let's go to you.
In 1996, a devastating storm hit Mount Everest, widely regarded as one of the highest points on Earth, and leaving several teams, most notably Scott Fisher, played by Jake Gyllenhaal, and soon-to-be father Rob Hall, played by Jason Clarke, stranded along with their clients, such as Beck Weathers, played by Josh Brolin, and well-regarded journalist and author John Krakauer, played by Michael Kelly. Over the course of the deadly storm, the teams faced snow blindness, fierce winds, and freezing temperatures in a desperate attempt to survive long enough to be rescued. Perhaps the best thing this movie has going for it is that it contrasts to many pieces of literature looking at this disaster. It doesn't really point any fingers. The most notable example of this comes from Krakauer's book, Into Thin Air, where he has a tendency to blame much of what happened and many of the casualties on a character that's only minimally seen in the film, Anatoly Bukrev. But instead, the result of this movie is more or less of this was just one mishap after another that led to so much chaos and unfortunate circumstances. I won't deny the length of this film is felt almost instantly, often because it chooses to focus on the characters themselves rather than the initial disaster itself, which surprisingly doesn't come into play until, I'd argue, about 2/3 into the movie. But the authenticity is there, which welcomes the emotional impact when it finally comes. Although it does get melodramatic at times, but surprisingly accurate, Everest has a definite sense of humanity and quite possibly some of the most gruesome injury makeup for a PG-13 film I have ever seen. And I would be lying if there weren't at least 2 moments where I was definitely feeling for the characters and coming very close to tears at times. It's certainly not without its flaws, but based on authenticity, I leave Everest with a B+.
Well, first and foremost, the obvious, and I'm not sure you hit this point home, Justin, but the cinematography is
Gorgeous.
Just astounding in this movie. Also, the sound editing. I think come Oscar season, we're going to see a lot of the technical awards at least being nominated with this movie. Just all of it is amazing to behold. And if you hadn't told me, Justin, I don't know if I would have known this was a post-conversion 3D. Those opening shots in 3D were just amazing. So I thought they did a good job with that. I think it's shot well, edited well, but the relationships at home are a little bit forced. Like the Keira Knightley character, I get it, it adds humanity, and obviously it's based on a true story, so this woman, was pregnant and everything, but the handling of it wasn't great, I would say, with that.
Kind of sure.
But, it is really interesting because you don't know who's going to make it out and who isn't. So it gives some really, really nice stakes here. You really are, like Justin said, really invested emotionally. I think there's pretty solid performances. Brolin and Gyllenhaal, though, are far from their best here. But,
I thought Brolin did a good job.
There was one line where he was like, no.
It wasn't...
Well, there were a few weak moments.
Oh, there were, but...
I'm not saying they were bad performances, but we've seen these guys both give incredibly, A-range performances. These were not it. But once the weather starts getting bad, it's also not the easiest to tell people apart sometimes. There's similar facial hair going on, a lot of people covered in snow.
There's a lot going on.
There is a lot going on there. But I have to say, I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. I enjoy that kind of up front it gives the audience a quick lesson in exactly why a climb like this is so hard, so we can kind of get on board right away. I guess I agree that they didn't really point fingers of who's to blame. I mean, really, the weather is to blame. But I do think there's a couple of people that, if you wanted to make a case for, you probably could. But I'm with you, Justin. I really enjoyed it. It's a B+ for me. Joe?
Well,
didn't want to see this.
not really. I don't really...
This ought to be good.
I don't typically care for disaster movies, and this was giving me Vertical Limit flashbacks. But...
So what'd you think?
Well, I mean, it's pretty much an echo of what you guys said.
It's really good, right?
Well, it's enjoyable. I think the thing I liked the best about it was that it didn't focus that much on the disaster element. Probably what saved it for me. I mean, visually it does look good, but I appreciated the fact they took a lot of time to focus on the humanity and the relationship between the characters. I liked that. That surprised me, and it did bring this authenticity to it and this realism to it. And I thought the performances were pretty good. I actually thought Gyllenhaal was probably the best, which I guess kind of goes without saying.
Probably,
I mean,
yeah.
I thought Jason Clarke was pretty good, too.
Yeah.
But, I don't know, I thought Brolin...
I've seen him better, too.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen all of them give better performances, for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I felt like it was sort of them just kind of running with it. Nothing hugely stand out. Nothing really stood out to me here, particularly in terms of performances, but they were good. Like I said, cinematography was great, editing was good, and I also agree with what you said. I liked the kind of the scientific explanation when they're breaking down basically how they prepared them for it.
Yeah,
it did make it seem like
the different base camps and explain like how
Oh yeah, no, I loved that. Yeah. I thought that was really interesting because I don't really know a whole lot about like the massive climbing of Everest. I know it's a big deal, but to know that you actually do have to work up to it and you have to kind of practice, and your body kind of has to meld with it and get used to the cold and the lack of air because of the altitude. So I did appreciate that. It was much more interesting and informative than I was expecting the movie to be, which is probably what saved it for me for the most part. And I just want to make a note that other than Stargate, I've never heard the term base camp used more. We have to get to base camp. Can't abandon base camp
a lot.
They said base camp literally. Of course, it's me, but every time they said, I just kept getting Stargate flashbacks. Have to abandon base camp. I was like, but it was funny. Anyway, I'm with you guys. It was a good movie. I give it a B+.
Oh wow!
All right,
okay. Trip B pluses.
That's why I was like, well,
yeah.
Not a bad thing.
But I will say though, if you look at all the disaster movies, I think why this one might stand out because of that human element, Joe, is your Titanics, your Armageddons. Most of these movies, the people don't knowingly go into something where there's disaster.
True.
I mean, Armageddon, they do but the meteor's already on the way, so
right.
Yes.
Here you have people that they're just adventurers. They want to climb, but they know that
what they're going into,
they might not be making it back.
It's true.
And I think that adds to that human element as well.
It's true.
Which begs one of the core questions of the film. Why do this?
I don't know. The last half of the movie, I just kept thinking. Even before that, when Brolin's crossing the ladder and like a half hour in, and it starts
to fall,
wobbling. I'm like, dude, I'm out.
And that's right.
I'm going back to base camp immediately after that
with Kurt Russell.
Yeah.
But the funny thing about that scene is that to kind of coincide with that, they're saying 19 people have died from that fall alone. But yeah, we haven't even started yet. And by the way, Dan, to answer your question, the reason why I didn't want to see the movie is because that whole concept just really annoys me. People knowingly putting themselves in danger for no reason other than just to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, I get you want to live your life or whatever,
right.
But what's worse is The Walk, which I know that you guys are going to make me see, but I'm sorry.
I'm very excited about The Walk, personally. We'll talk about that in a couple weeks.
That's more than you're giving it credit for, Joe.
I just want to say, Justin, I'm sorry.
I understand what Joe's saying.
I mean, a guy wants to walk across the Twin Towers on a tightrope, is just a little ridiculous to me. Hence why Everest, even if it's a true story, it is naturally harder for me to get behind characters that do something for no reason other than, just
for the thrill of
it.
For
adventure. Yeah. I mean, it's like, okay, if it was like, okay.
What about on a smaller scale, though? Somebody bungee jumping or skydiving? Is that also... I mean, I don't think I would do it, but...
I get why people do it. Mm-hmm. I guess, okay, the thrill of it, I get it, but it's just...
In Fast and Furious 7, they skydove out of cars. Okay.
Are those the
smartest...
Why
risk their lives, Joe?
Are they the... Well, to be fair, they're the good guys. They, fight
true.
bad guys and stuff.
They do.
Whatever. Plus, that's not the smartest movie with the smartest characters anyway. But
no, I'm with you, though. I don't understand...
That's my biggest issue with movies.
And God bless him for doing it, but...
I mean, it's cool, but, there's literally... Like if it was, okay, the year 1300 and they're exploring some new land. Okay, I get it. Let's do this. There's no reason to climb Everest.
Well, and Brolin's wife, we find out,
You know?
tells him that, listen, if you go on any more of these climbs, I will divorce you.
I'm with her. I'm
know?
with her. You know, and that's the issue. But like I said, it was still good.
Mm-hmm.
But that to explain, Justin, that's why these movies have no interest for me. It's not that I think that they're going to be bad. I'm sure The Walk will be great. I love Joseph Gordon-Levitt. If I wasn't doing this podcast, I would probably never see the movie. I just have zero interest in it.
Movies about pride-driven characters are...
That risk their lives for stunts? Yes, that has no interest for me. I'm sorry.
Logic is a little strange there, but I'll...
Can you not see my point?
I don't think so. I don't feel the same as Joe, but I completely understand where he's coming from. These characters are not appealing to him.
They aren't.
No, I understand where he's coming from, but I don't think that necessarily means it doesn't deserve to be watched because of that reason.
I didn't say that. I said I wouldn't watch it.
Look, everybody's got their things. As we're going to hear later on, I would never in a million years have watched Green Inferno if we weren't doing
exactly.
this show.
You know,
so if that puts it into perspective.
He's not into the,
I'm not into the gore stuff. Never would have watched that movie.
So does that mean, like, if somebody wants to watch it because they're into that, they shouldn't? No,
yeah. I'm fine if
Justin,
somebody else wants to watch it.
There's a very, like, small, like, cataclysm of, like, different movie genres that I'm not interested in. That's like one of the few.
That is a very, very
specific.
Niche.
It's a very like you know how like there's that one thing that you just love more than anything, and you're just like no matter what it is, you're gonna go see it. Seriously,
that's true. No,
there's got to be something
understand.
on the other end of the spectrum.
And for you, that's that.
Yeah, I'm telling you.
Yeah.
So, but I still liked it. If I had given an F-, that might have been an issue.
But an I-, sir.
Only one movie so far, unless it gets a sequel. I Origins 2. Let's go.
All right. Well, up next we've got The Intern. And in this movie, Jules Austin, played by Anne Hathaway, the young founder and CEO of an online clothing company called About the Fit, is 100% hands-on with her successful company. But that means her outside life, specifically with her husband, played by Anders Holm, is less than successful lately. Jules agrees to a new program at work where senior citizens intern for the company, and the breakout intern is Ben Whitaker, played by Robert De Niro, a 70-year-old lonely widower with a history of business savvy. He becomes Jules' personal intern, much to her chagrin, but she soon realizes that she may need him as much as he needs the job to keep busy. Rene Russo and Adam Devine also star. It was written and directed by Nancy Meyers of It's Complicated and others. Now, Meyers knows how to write powerful women. That's always been one of her things, from Private Benjamin to Diane Keaton and Baby Boom. Career-minded but flawed, realistic but safely written, and Hathaway's Jules is added now to that list. The positives of The Intern are that De Niro continues his resurgence of great performances, and his chemistry with Hathaway is believable. The story works, and though it certainly stretches the boundaries of realism, I'd say that's true with most comedies. A lot of good observations here, especially about old age and the plight of the working mother, though it's nothing we haven't really seen before. It's pretty standard, really. And that's kind of where I stop with the positives. The romance with Russo, completely unnecessary, as is her character. I don't think we really needed to give Robert De Niro a love interest in this film. It was really about him and Hathaway. Probably the most polarizing scene, which I liked, but the breaking and entering caper, I think, is going to either make or break this movie for people. I thought it was funny and, but it does stick out like a sore thumb. I think the jokes are pleasant, but the jokes about old age, being confused about the internet and technology, those are like so played out. That's where it really fell flat. But other than that, some of the other humor kind of worked. There's an obvious soundtrack of, like, Meyers standards in this movie. I'm not saying every movie has to have, like, pop hits, but this is, like, the interchangeable soundtrack of every Nancy Meyers movie. And a lot of movies of this ilk. The older skewing rom-com type film, so that really annoyed me. I almost wanted to bump it up a little bit extra because of De Niro's likability, but I'll leave The Intern with a B-. Joe?
I mean, I would say that it was certainly a little bit of a surprise. It's a very interesting movie because I think that what surprised me the most, actually, was it seemed like the type of comedy that De Niro would phone in, but he gives this great performance in it.
He's really great in this movie.
His character was really likable and believable, and I really liked his character a lot. really which surprised me. And I agree, Hathaway does a good job. They have great chemistry. I really liked their relationship. It was interesting. And it kind of takes a lot of different levels, actually. And I think that the story itself is actually okay. Yeah. I thought that it actually did tackle some interesting topics, and there were some bold decisions. I think that how the one romance for Hathaway and her marriage situation ended up was actually very mature and bold and different, which I liked. The caper scene, I agree that it sticks out like a sore thumb. And I was thinking about this as I was leaving. Like, okay, that's something that really tonally way off. Feels like a completely different movie, but I loved it.
I did too.
I loved it. Now, it doesn't belong in the movie at all, but I found it hilarious.
Yeah.
So I kind of accepted it and just moved on. Yeah, I think some of the humor works that's more all-inclusive. I think that, as I said, it did kind of have some interesting commentary. We've seen somewhat before about getting older and the transferring generations, and even like the technology itself and how it interplays and people getting used to it. The problem is that a lot of the jokes that focus specifically on old age, like you said, and like some of the early stuff where they're talking about, like, oh, texting. I don't know what that is. Look, if you're 70 now and you kind of know what that's a little, that's a bit of a stretch and borderline offensive. So,
like, I liked the scene where she was teaching him how to use Facebook.
Yes.
Because he knew what Facebook was. He wasn't like, oh, what is this Facebook you speak of?
But there's this one woman he interacts that doesn't like.
It seemed very natural, that one scene.
No, there were a couple scenes like that, but there are also a number of jokes, especially early on in the movie, where it's like like tweeting, what's that? Like, come on, like that's a little bit much. And like I said, some of it was borderline offensive. Like, where do you see yourself in 10 years when I'm 80? Like, come on.
Yeah,
that was a little rude and unbelievable. And so there's stuff like that that's peppered throughout, but thankfully that's not the bulk of the movie. So it's a little uneven, but there's enough going good for it that I did give it a positive grade. I live with a B- as well.
Okay, Justin.
So this is the second Nancy Meyers movie I've seen in full. And all I really have to say is I wish I'd seen some of the better ones. I know you have your issues with The Holiday, but I know that was fairly well received.
Yeah, I didn't like The Holiday.
and a couple other ones. I can't really call The Intern terrible, because it's not. And it certainly has its charms, albeit while I found De Niro's character likable, I also found his character being incessantly infallible in everything.
He was like the perfect person.
Kind of a little annoying and semi-unbelievable.
I mean, Robert De Niro. What can I say?
It's like he literally has the solution for everything.
No, he was infallible and like the best person ever. You're right. It was a little ridiculous, but he still sold it.
It didn't really bother me until about 2/3 into the movie where it's like, I can literally do anything. And then I was like, oh, get over it, De Niro.
But he's De Niro. He can't do anything.
He is De Niro. But alongside that, it's also fairly generic. I don't like the whole every single young person is this these naive characters who don't seem to have any grasp of how to handle older, more experienced employees.
I actually found that part to be pretty believable and on point myself.
Some parts, yes, others, no. Like the whole where do you see yourself in 10 years thing, don't buy it all.
Well, like Joe said, that was just a bad joke that didn't land.
The heist thing, it's definitely out of place. I think parts of it were funny. I thought the handling of it was a little awkward. But where I will give the movie a lot of credit, even though it doesn't really have a whole lot of bite to it, is I do respect the matter that it hits home the idea that you don't have to be a woman to be a feminist. And I think that's really where De Niro shines near the end of this movie. And through that, I think it has a sense of charm that keeps it slightly above mediocrity. I leave The Intern with a C+.
That sounds fair.
Yeah, that's actually a little higher than I thought you were going to go, Justin.
Yeah.
I thought of you specifically during the breaking and entering scene because I was like, man, Justin is going to hate this part of the movie because it really doesn't belong.
Oh, it's so
but it was
ridiculous.
enjoyable.
It was.
I'll be honest, I didn't hate it that much. I thought it was a little bit weird, but I wasn't overly bothered by it.
Okay.
But you have my undivided attention, Dan. What did you think I was going to give it?
Oh, like a C- probably. I mean, you don't really care for Hathaway by and large.
True.
You don't really like these types of, like, older adult-leaning comedies.
Well, I can't speak to It's Complicated, but you might be right.
No, but you make fun of it a lot. Which is, I guess, why I thought you had seen it.
I do.
You rip on it quite a bit for someone that apparently never saw it.
I will watch it at some point in time, but
know,
that day is yet to come.
But Streep's another one that you don't particularly care for in these types of roles. the rom-com, because you didn't like that movie she did with Tommy Lee Jones either. What was that called? Not Hope Floats.
Hope Springs?
Hope Springs, yeah.
There it is.
Yeah.
It wasn't that they gave a bad performance, it was just, in the case of that one, the tone was a little bit awkward.
Well, you didn't like Baby Boom. So, okay, I don't know. I just sort of figured you wouldn't be super on board with this. But I think De Niro really does sell it.
Oh, yeah. He's the main reason this movie actually works as well as it does.
I mean, I suppose he's pretty infallible.
Fair.
But, I mean, she does have to teach him how to use Facebook. And, he's well-mannered. And he knows how to dress. And he knows how to be, a real man. And he can problem solve. But he does have some flaws.
He has a lot of wisdom.
And I guess that's really the point that this movie is hitting home, is that don't count your elders out, I guess.
Yeah, he's not perfect, I'd say, but he's pretty close.
He's very close.
I also thought the ending was a little odd, but that's just me.
Well, you liked the ending, Joe.
I did, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was not quite as generic an ending as I was expecting.
The ending business-wise or Anne Hathaway personal-wise?
Last scene ending.
Oh. I mean, I admit...
I get what they were going for, it's just...
It was kind of corny.
It was a little abrupt, but I it wasn't bad, though. I was okay with it.
Yeah, I was alright with it.
That was kind of a nice little,
It certainly didn't stick out to me as much as the B&E scene.
Well, no.
What would, really?
That's fair.
All right, well, up next, let's talk about Green Inferno. Joe?
Oh.
My movie.
The movie made for Dan.
Yep.
Okay. Green Inferno is a horror film directed by Eli Roth, who you guys may be familiar with from Hostel and Hostel Part 2, and Cabin Fever. Anything else?
I think that's the bulk of it.
That's like the main stuff. And it was apparently inspired by the cannibal films of the late 70s and 80s, primarily Cannibal Holocaust, which is a very controversial movie in its own right, apparently due to the Green Inferno film within a film that was in it. And it's about this group of student activists, primarily this one naive one who's a college freshman who doesn't know anything, who travels to the Amazon to save the rainforest because basically she wants to get in good with this one gentleman that's leading the group, and they soon discover, though, that they are not alone and must escape from a native tribe of cannibals that are, interestingly enough, all painted red, so it could be implying red men? I don't know. This is one of those instances where the movie is very weird to discuss. Okay, well, I'll just give you guys my experience. Going in, of course, I had no real desire to see this. But 10 seconds into the movie, I was angry. Because the opening sequence is really just a single shot of the canopies of Peru with the credits going over it for like 5 minutes. And really, that's all it is. It's true. It's some of the laziest opening credits I've seen.
You didn't like the credits disappearing into the trees?
You know what? At least that would have been memorable. I mean, Afterglow, corny credits aside where they go around the buildings, you know what? It's corny, but at least it was an interesting effect. Mm-hmm. This was just boring. 5 minutes in. I'm bored. I'm angry about how lazy this is. And not to mention later on where the girl's viewing the outside of the plane and it's just the credits in reverse.
It is. That was weird.
That was really annoying. But the good news is that once we get past the credits, I was entertained because the characters are not only pretty unlikable, but their dialogue is terrible. Mm-hmm. And the acting is subpar at best. Some sporadic okayness, but I didn't really blame the actors and actresses that much because the performances weren't terrible with this dialogue, because really with dialogue this bad, it's hard to make it sound real human. So I don't really give the actors too much grief there. The dialogue is just really on the nose throughout it. I'll say this. The story's kind of silly, but it sort of holds together, I guess, for what it is, so I can't really give it too much of a hard time for that. And once some of these characters start experiencing some ridiculousness, some of the horror is genuine. And then we have interspersed scenes with fart jokes for like a minute, which completely deride everything. So, for me, this movie held my interest, and there may have been about 2 or 3 minutes of actual fear for me, particularly one really gory scene, which, by the way, I think is a testament to the excellent effects. It's probably some of the best gore I've ever seen, honestly. I'll say that. So that's a plus there. The rest of the movie, though, is kind of unintentional comedy, which enters into guilty pleasure for me. So, even though I really, really, really wanted to hate this movie, the combination of excellent effects, because it is an exploitation film, so you have to go into it, as I do, with the point of the movie. It's an Eli Roth movie. The audience is going to get what they want from it, and the rest of it's unintentionally hilarious. So, you know what? I leave it with a C+.
Okay. Well, these Eli Roth films are known for their gore, and as I mentioned in Everest, I had no desire to see this and never would have if we weren't going to talk about it here. I think Green Inferno is far too gory, although I will say it was a little more sporadic than I thought it was going to be.
Agreed.
Never having seen, Hostel or any of the others, I thought maybe it would be a lot more frequent. It really isn't, but I did definitely spend maybe a total of 3 or 4 minutes in this movie with my head down, just listening to limbs being severed off. And
I'll tell you what, though, that one scene in particular, the big one, I had a hard time looking at it too. I was like half eyes closed and like trying to take it in, but I couldn't do it the whole way. I couldn't do it.
Like I didn't want to close my eyes, so I would just kind of keep my head down, and I would see like the bottom quarter of the screen. Maybe
you saw enough.
I heard enough. For
impressive,
sure.
right?
The genitals being mutilated and the people eating people. Yeah, I mean, I got the point.
Yummy.
I don't get the fascination with this kind of thing. I never will, nor will I ever really enjoy it. But that's not actually what ruined the movie for me.
Was it the awesome plot?
Ruined the movie for me. Although, okay, as an aside, some of the gore is just gratuitous, and I guess that's the point.
Yeah.
But right, then they throw in like this diarrhea sequence that is like...
Why is this here?
It's not funny. It's just annoying.
I thought it was funny.
But no, the problem with Green Inferno is that it runs rampant with ideals and characters that make zero sense, and there's tons of plot holes.
Oh, yeah.
At one point, one of the girls actually does escape the clutches of the tribe, but we never hear from her again. Nor does any one of the 100 or so natives that, are there realize, weren't there 5 of you here yesterday?
What's up with that?
I mean, it wasn't like there was that many of the students that they would lose count.
They seemed kind of like nonchalant about their food source. Like they only had like 2 guards for like this special cannibalistic ritual.
I guess, but everybody was keeping watch over them.
Only
feel
like 2 guys. Really? The 2 guys on top who only cared like...
They were the ones who were the quote-unquote watchdogs, but I think everybody was paying attention at least to them.
Honestly,
that's fair.
I don't know. I thought it was off and on, but...
But you're right. The acting is horrible in this.
It's terrible.
But I do have to say, I was interested in the basic story. It didn't bore me.
I was too.
This film.
Strangely.
So I have to give it at least a little bit of credit for that. I leave Green Inferno with a C-.
It's not that bad. I was expecting much worse.
Well, I was too. I was trying to be fair.
You have to
I
admit.
can respect that.
I wasn't bored with it. I liked the story, even though a lot of the characters, you're right, were unlikable and didn't make any sense.
I will say, though, I found it interesting, kind of keeping in cue with just horror movie standards.
Sure.
The most likable character is, of course, a fat black guy. He really is. He's like the best character.
Oh, yeah, I liked him a lot.
He was honestly like a decent character. And spoilers, guys, he dies horribly. The most horrible death.
Not even really a spoiler. I'm sorry. It's like the oldest horror cliche in the book at this point.
Yeah, but like for him to get the worst one, though, I thought that was just a shame. Because I actually did kind of like that character.
Well, that was the point, I guess.
But I love how oblivious he was about the whole thing.
I think he was like... I think I got his head hit at some point. He was a little out of it.
All right, Justin?
Well, similar to M. Night Shyamalan in a way, I'd love to call Eli Roth a has-been. But honestly, I don't think he's ever actually been.
Oh.
Much like with his other films, Hostel, Cabin Fever, Roth just charges forth blindly, throwing whatever gory and vulgar twinge he can at the viewer, occasionally with some sort of darkly comedic, at least to him anyways, aspect, and hoping it works. In this case, trying to throw in some wannabe sophisticated commentary about activism that personally I don't think works whatsoever. And the result is just a tonally awkward mess. The acting is abysmal, but in their defense, I feel like it's the byproduct of actors not knowing what kind of movie they signed up for. Because, yes, it's a horror film, but then we'll have all these weird, goofy moments just shoved in there for no reason.
It almost seemed like some kind of weird satire.
And it's very evident that he's trying to go for that, but he's doing it in the most weak and amateurish way humanly possible. But it's Eli Roth, yet again, being Eli Roth, and that's fine for gorehounds, with incredibly low standards. But that's not so great for anyone else.
It's true.
So for that, I leave the Green Inferno with a D+.
It's not too bad.
It's not a good movie, though.
It really isn't.
It's not
absolutely isn't.
I mean, I suppose if you liked Hostel, you'll enjoy this. I never saw Hostel, but I sort of get that vibe that this is his thing. Terrible acting, just passable script.
I'll be honest, the acting in Hostel was way better than this.
I heard the cast was like somewhat decent in the first one.
The first one, I probably shouldn't call it a good movie.
I don't know.
At least the actors,
right?
At least the actors were committed to their roles and made it work with what they had. Torture porn segments later on, I can't really speak to, but
I don't know. Like I said, you got to get.
I think the actors were doing what they could. I mean, the kid from Spy Kids was all right.
Which one was he?
The redhead.
Like that's like I've seen far worse acting though. That's the thing. Like
hands down.
I mean, it's not good, but like I said, the script isn't very good. You can't do that much with a terrible script.
I'll be honest, I don't really blame the actors that much. I blame Eli Roth's terrible directing and with giving them this storyline.
You know, notwithstanding with the horrible opening credits, which was just like really lazy, I did
tedious.
think it was really tedious. I actually thought it was very well shot, though. I thought it was well shot. It was
okay.
I thought it was pretty well shot.
In some spots, yes, and others, no.
I mean, there was some bad shaky cam, but I thought like one thing that did impress me, which I guess you'd expect. Like I said, the gore effects were good, but also the makeup. Like I thought they looked pretty good. Like the one executioner guy, he looked pretty creepy.
Yeah, he was creepy.
I liked the way he looked. Like I thought there was a decent visual component to the movie, which surprised me. Mm-hmm. So I mean, I thought there was good in it. Like there were good elements to it, but I want to say it needs more focus. But I don't know if anybody cares if they did.
Yeah, that's not what he was going for.
No, it's like you got the gore, you got a story to throw it in. I feel like the audience will be satisfied with that. But I want to ask you though, Justin, you might know more about this.
Go on.
Does Eli Roth have where's he from originally? Is he American?
You know, I'm not 100% sure.
Because he's got this weird theme in his movies that's like fearful of other nations. Because Hostel was all like Eastern Europe,
was in Amsterdam.
Eastern Europe bad. This was like South America bad. Like there's always some underbelly of the nation that's like don't go there because it's not really that good.
Mm-hmm. Cabin Fever was, I think, backwoods south.
Yeah, so it's like he's always like don't go here because it's always like there's something lurking.
Yeah,
and it just seemed very fearful of like just cultures and groups of people in general. Because it was similar, from what I understand, with Hostel.
In a way, I can see where you're coming from. I
just don't know what the deal is.
I never really thought about it that way, but no, I've heard definitely have a point.
That mentioned before that he's kind of like xenophobic in a weird way. And I don't know what's up with that.
All right, well, up next is Grandma, and this is Lily Tomlin in her first leading film role in 27 years. She plays Grandma Elle, a lesbian widow recently out of her first post-mourning relationship with the much younger Olivia, played by Judy Greer. Right after, her 18-year-old granddaughter Sage, played by Julia Garner, pays Grandma a visit to try and borrow $600. She is pregnant and wants to get an abortion. Grandma doesn't have that kind of money, but the two go on a quest to find the money, which takes them through a tour of Elle's exes over the past 50 years. Marcia Gay Harden and Sam Elliott have supporting roles. Writer-director Paul Weitz has a hit-or-miss track record with me. He's helmed some of my absolute favorites, co-directing About a Boy and American Pie with his brother Chris. Oh. But more recently, he's directed American Dreams and Little Fockers. So, sort of on the opposite end of that scale.
Yikes.
Grandma, though, certainly puts him back in my good graces. Elle is one of the great characters of the year. Now, it would be really easy to dismiss her as one note. She's cantankerous, we get it. But scripted by Weitz and portrayed by the always underrated, I think, Tomlin, she is so much more than that. She's got a great emotional center, but never sappy. Garner gives a delightful and real performance as Sage, and I appreciate how the film boldly doesn't back down from the abortion storyline, easily one of the most debated topics out there. In fact, if anything, I think it gives a perfect balance of being realistic, but not beating you over the head with a theme. My only other real problem with the movie is Harden as Sage's mom. We've seen her do this character 100 times before. You know, the gruff businesswoman, you know, I don't have time for you. Grandma and Sage bust into her office to tell her about the pregnancy, Joe, and she's on a treadmill working from her desk. So that was, like, for me, the one part of, like, we've definitely done that before. But no, I really enjoyed this movie. It's an A- for me. Nice. Joe, hopefully you'll get to see it before the end of the year.
Planning on it.
Because it really, really stood out to me. Justin, what did you think of Grandma?
This is one of those rare times where a movie below 90 minutes actually works thanks to an effective script that knows what it wants to do and how to do it without rushing, surprisingly enough, and has a great cast to bring it to life. Now, Tomlin's character I found a little bit hard to like at first, but the film keeps providing the audience with more and more revealing circumstances through her exes and other elements that make us sympathetic for her situation and ultimately understand the best aspect about her. She is truly one badass grandma who would go to hell and back for her granddaughter. And that's not something we can all relate to, be it with grandmothers or just in other family members. I don't know what is. I'll admit I'm with you, Dan, a little bit, that the mom subplot is a little underdeveloped. It sort of comes out of left field. I understand why it does, and it's to some extent comes full circle, but I wish they had done a little bit more with it. I also have very mixed feelings about where they went with the overall ending. I don't think it needed the extra 2-minute scene that they sort of throw on. But for the most part, I'm with you, Dan. This is a very solid movie that I thoroughly enjoyed. I laughed, I got emotional at times, and really, really good performance from Tomlin. I leave it with a B+.
I actually really enjoyed the ending because it sort of does give Tomlin's character just a little bit of closure, I guess, on that one plot line. The whole thing with the mom, I don't know if I would have preferred that they lifted her out of the movie entirely and just been the talked about mom that we don't actually need to see. We just take Grandma and Sage's word for it that she doesn't want to be trifled with. Or just change Hardin's character so that she's not so by the numbers.
No, I mean, she's an important character. It's just I feel like we needed more time with her instead of being, oh, look, hardworking businesswoman mom who's able to possibly solve our situation for us.
Well, but that's the whole point. I mean, the movie only takes place over one day.
Right.
So it's, if she's hardworking business mom, how else can you really introduce her to the story other than when they bust into her office and say, you need to help us out. So that's what I mean. Either take her away entirely and just make her sort of a myth, or just make her slightly different. Because it was easily the most generic part of the movie.
Definitely.
Though
my issue with your idea of if they just reduced her to myth, you'd have to completely change more or less the entire third act.
Yeah, she's heavily involved with that, I guess. But I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't have necessarily minded if they went in a bunch of different other directions. I mean, these characters are very strong.
No, that's true.
I'm sure they could have figured out a way if they wanted to go in that direction. But I do agree that it is a very short movie. The last one I think we saw that was this short was The Overnight. And I think both you and I agreed that
this is definitely the better movie.
It was, well, not only is this the better movie, but that there was almost too much going on. They had, in 80 minutes, they told a 60-minute story.
Pretty much.
And it started to drag there, for a while. This, I think, it's concise enough, but it gets the point across.
Well, also in this case, you can definitely tell they had a script they were going off of. The Overnight, I mean...
Yeah, you can tell it was a lot of improv in that. You're right.
Definitely.
Yeah. All right, well, Joe, like I said, hopefully by the end of the year you'll get to see that one.
Oh, I will.
May be appearing on my year-end list. I really enjoyed it. All right, well, up next we're going to do our home media moment, and that is The Deadlands. Justin?
James Rolston plays Hungy, the teenage son of a Maori chieftain searching for vengeance when his tribe is slaughtered. Hungy's journey takes him to the forbidden Deadlands, where he makes an alliance with a legendary warrior, played by Lawrence, I apologize for the pronunciation, Mekawar, to bring peace to his loved ones in the great beyond. The Deadlands has a very, very familiar borderline kung fu premise, with some certain similarities to Mel Gibson's Apocalypto, but it's a premise that knows what it is and for the most part makes the best of it. The action sequences, personally, I feel have a brutal vibrancy to them, and let them take center stage and then some. I feel like it's truly when the film comes to life, and it provides the viewer with situations that further emphasize the growth of the characters and how it ultimately shapes up the narrative. Unfortunately, due to the similarities and very, very familiar premise, much of this movie is incredibly predictable, and the scenes outside of the action can drag at times. It's a fun little independent action thriller for those who can put up with subtitles. with some fun performances and some pretty awesome action sequences, I leave the Deadlands with a B.
Joe?
Well, I think a lot of what Justin said, I can agree with. I mean, I think the Kung Fu storyline, sort of like gaining vengeance,
I must avenge my family.
Becoming a better warrior is like pretty standard since like, the beginning of time, basically. So pretty standard story there. That's true. And I do agree that this movie does have some pacing issues, mostly because of that predictability. I mean, you know what's going to happen.
Absolutely.
But despite that, I thought it was beautiful. I thought the action was awesome. I thought the makeup was great. I did think the characters were intriguing enough. Performances seemed pretty good. I actually really enjoyed this movie quite a bit. I do think Apocalypto is a much more fun, engaging, and just overall better movie. But this is a decent copycat. I give it with a B+.
All right. Well, it is good to know Apocalypto is at least better than this.
Significant.
By a good margin.
Yes.
Because I've never seen that movie, but I know you guys are into it. I think that there's definitely some interesting fight scenes here. The closing battle, I thought, specifically had really good choreography, very well shot. I do think visually the film is interesting. You're right about that, Joe. The makeup is really good. I think the acting is fine. But with such a generic story...
It's pretty generic.
That this 2-hour movie, it just becomes a chore. And I'm not even that versed in these types of movies, and I could tell from a mile away everything that was going to happen. To that end, there's too much fighting and not enough story. If you're going to be this generic, flesh it out a little bit. Make it a little bit different or something.
So you think it should be more like The Raid, where it's just pretty much nonstop action?
One or the other. I love The Raid.
Which is like almost zero story.
I know. I was surprised how much I like The Raid.
There's not that much. There's not that much, Justin.
I mean, it's little story like Mad Max Fury Road has a little story.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But
I agree.
But there's a genuine story there.
But I'm guessing Dan's saying he'd like there to just be like a lot happening all the time.
Well, either one or the other.
Mm-hmm.
Don't do fight scenes sometimes and then give us like this
half
of a story that we already know.
Not like Hobbit, where it's skirmish, exposition, end.
That's Lord of the Rings in a nutshell.
Yeah, I suppose that's true.
Fight, exposition.
But there was more to go. I mean,
Yeah,
obviously, Lord of the Rings
yes.
is a significantly more interesting story. I'm just saying,
yes.
if you're going to play it this way, maybe give us a little bit more of the fleshing out so that it can't be that generic. I mean, it's such a generic by-the-number story. Give us a little bit of taste of something else, and then I can get behind it better. Mm-hmm. So for me, I leave Deadlands with a C+.
Okay. Given the build-up to that grade, I was expecting it to be lower, but...
Well, like I said, visually it is appealing. The fight scenes are good. Mm-hmm. Just the story is very predictable.
To offer like a Dan move, if you were going to do something differently about this, what would you have liked to have seen? Just curious. To spice up the story a little bit, maybe.
To spice up the story, maybe a little more background on some of these characters. I mean, it's such a basic revenge story.
It does kind of start off with like, this is what we go on without really establishing.
Explain to me exactly why we're revenging this. How far back does this go? A little more of that, and I think I would have appreciated.
Okay, it's a little more backstory for you.
Build up the culture before it's completely...
Well, we know the culture. It's Apocalypse.
yeah.
It's the same village.
I mean, but you make a good point, Dan. I mean, the whole revenge element is basically said straight up from the warrior character. We're going after them with everything we got.
Mm-hmm.
So
let's go.
So why not we just make that the driving point?
Pretty instead straightforward.
Yeah,
well,
it is.
So what do you guys think about the warrior character literally called the warrior? A generic.
I mean, in a culture like this, I can understand.
But like,
I gave a pass for that.
There's a little more, but there's warriors, and then there's the warrior. Not to be confused with the warriors who are doing their Subway reshoot.
Yes, I thought you were going to say not to be confused with the legend.
Well, you see, the thing is, there's the legend, but they might get that confused with I Am Legend.
True.
So it might be too inside at this point. But Film Fanatics podcast, they know.
We've gone about 8 layers deep now with this metaphor.
Take that, Inception.
Yeah, we've beaten Inception now. It's pretty good.
Oh, God. Before we get to our double feature of older movies, we have a news item to talk about, and that is for Prometheus 2. And Justin, do you want to tell us about what's going on with that?
Tell us about that brilliant move.
Well, in a recent interview with Empire, Ridley Scott gave a little bit more details about Prometheus 2. It will not be called Prometheus 2, but rather Alien: Paradise Lost. Among the details that he gave is does continue after the first one ended with Noomi Rapace's character heading off to the engineer homeworld with Michael Fassbender. He did note Michael Fassbender will not be a severed head throughout the entire movie.
Okay.
There will be some putting him back together, so to speak.
That would have been cool.
And understanding the overall origin of that world. Here's where I'll play a little bit of devil's advocate. This isn't like Alien where we can just call it Aliens and leave it at that.
Prometheus is...
It's just not going to happen.
Prometheus.
And at one point I know this was going to be called like Paradise or something like that.
How about like maybe the Engineers or something like that? Or like...
Prometheus, the Engineer World.
Engineers, like the Home World or...
Or Severed Head. Severed Head the movie.
Fassbender, the talking head.
Yes.
People would go see it.
The one big flaw I see from this is...
One.
I'm going with the major flaw that I'm concerned about more than anything else.
Okay.
Is Prometheus is a spin-off, a sort of spin-off, we'll say.
Not anymore.
Not anymore, but at least the first one was a semi-spin-off.
Trying to be, yeah.
With ties to the Alien universe. Mm-hmm. The one other fact that I forgot to mention is this one will apparently also have a correlation between the Prometheus world and the character of Ellen Ripley.
Okay.
But here's the thing. The Alien franchise is trying to continue its own mythology, which I'm okay with. But we have the Prometheus franchise, which is trying to merge with the Alien franchise, and we just had the announcement that Neil Blomkamp is making next project is going to be an Alien movie as well. So
and don't forget Predator somewhere in the mix.
Right.
Yeah.
No,
AVP too.
Like I mean, we joke about it, but let's face it: if they're going to build us like a franchise like everybody else, 5 years down the line,
they're going to play the
Prometheus,
AVP card.
Alien,
No,
Predator,
you're right.
Massive. It's inevitable. If there's money to be made, it's going to happen.
But right now, I think they're just trying to fit within the confines.
Yeah.
So far, no, the AVP movies have been considered canon, as far as I'm aware.
You are correct. They are not. Though I'm not entirely sure it's because of plot holes, because we can accept them, or because people just kind of hate them. Mm-hmm. So it's more.
I'd say it's more or less the latter.
It was kind
I
of.
would too.
It's kind of what Origins was in the beginning, and also it's kind of like X-Men: Last Stand, where it's like, oh, it was very canon to the story
at the time,
but people at the time, but people said no.
Right.
We pretend like it doesn't exist, and that power led to, of course, officially being taken out of continuity.
But I guess my big issue with this is just simply, I'm okay with the franchise expanding its mythology, and I understand that we can't just simply call it Prometheus, but
Prometheus. They could call it Prometheus too. I mean,
yeah. What would be wrong with calling it Prometheus too?
There is nothing wrong with it. They just made it more complicated,
right?
like they are everything else.
I don't understand.
Overthinking the
because
title.
they always try to do something weird with it, like add a subtitle like Alien Resurrection,
like a giant
or
S, like Prometheus,
or Alien 3, where they make the 3 an exponent.
like a.
But it was still called Alien 3.
That's fair.
Make the 2 an exponent then, or put it in parentheses, or give it a top hat. I mean, there's things you could do stylistically.
Or better yet, just call it Prometheus Paradise Lost or something like that.
Or just S.
That's another option.
Actually,
yeah.
to be honest,
yeah, if you want to go with the poem, the Paradise Lost theme.
I will be honest. I like that title.
No, it's a fitting title. It's just
and it's alliterative. Prometheus, Paradise Lost.
Overdone, finished.
Yeah, rolls off the tongue.
Yeah, I think that I like to say I'm open to them exploring their mythology, and I liked some things about Prometheus, but the movie was kind of divisive.
Mm-hmm. It was,
and so I would respect Ridley Scott more if you just want to say, okay, this is kind of related, but I'm doing basically my own thing. But he's caving into that because Prometheus was very much an alien movie, no matter what people say. And now, obviously, he's saying, look, I'm just going to, continue to go on the standard of Alien because that's what I'm known for. I'm going to go with that, which I'm fine too. But once again, like with Prometheus, pick a direction. And I just feel like, if you want it to be something direct, fine. If you want it to be its own thing, fine. Pick one.
Well, here's my slight rebuttal to that. I agree with you to some extent. However, if it wasn't for the final moments of Prometheus suggesting the correlation between the two franchises, I feel like he sort of dug himself into a hole where he has to further that correlation, particularly since it's set some odd years before the first movie.
You're right. I would almost say, to be honest, with the exception of the fact that it obviously was the engineers. Right. With the exception of that, it's almost a spiritual sequel to the Aliens. Almost. With the exception of that key thing. If that's all they chose to explore, with maybe just little hints about the xenomorphs, I'm fine with that. But while I agree with you, Justin, he still put that in the movie as an obvious hook to go with people and say, just to let you guys know, it's an alien movie, and because he might be afraid people might not see the second Prometheus movie, let's change the thing. Oh no, it's definitely completely alien related. Not even spiritually, not even remotely related.
Well, that's why they did the sound effect.
It's directly correlated.
That's why they did the classic alien sound effect in the previews for Prometheus.
I mean, it's the advertising. That's what I'm saying. It's kind of a mixed message, and now obviously, okay, fine, do that, but let's not have a movie where you call it this. And there's nothing about xenomorphs now because people are going to go in now. And if it's not, and it is just Prometheus 2, then he's not going to make a third movie.
Right.
So that was part of the problem with the first one. Divisive, but I can kind of get behind it. This time, he better deliver with what he's literally calling his movie, or he's done. He's done. And another thing, I don't want to beat this too much, but if you're going to do it once again, exploring the origins, I want to know. There's a part of me that wants to know. It's awesome. But part of what was great about it was the mystery of the aliens themselves.
I really enjoyed that.
Which when people were angry about Prometheus not giving too many clues, I was okay with that ambiguity. It asked a lot of interesting philosophical questions, like the dark sci-fi often does, but without saying too much specifically. It's like when people were complaining with the engineers, you saw what they looked like? That ruined the engineers for a lot of people. I went 20 years thinking they were weird elephant people, as did everyone else. And I was like, that's an interesting, weird H.H. Geiger creature. Oh no, just a pale human guy. That's boring and generic.
Right.
Something ruined now. Honestly, kind of ruined.
Well,
by taking the mystery. So once again, either make it amazing or keep that ambiguity.
All right, well, let's get into our double feature of older movies. We're in October, so horror month now has begun. Joe, let's hear about your pick, Mimic.
All right. Well, Mimic is a 1997 horror film written and directed by Guillermo del Toro, or Sandwich, as I like to call him, and starring Mira Sorvino, Jeremy Northam, Josh Brolin, in an early role from him, and Charles S. Dutton. There's also a brief minor character played by F. Murray Abraham. 3 years before the movie begins, or I guess in the prequel part of the movie, an entomologist named Dr. Susan Tyler genetically creates an insect to kill the cockroaches that are carrying a virulent disease throughout New York. Now, it turns out years later, the insects are out to destroy their only true predator, mankind, as they begin to evolve to look like their predators, taking on aspects of humanity. I picked this movie because I thought it was a less obvious choice, and I thought it kind of was a something that made sense considering the fact that we have Crimson Peak coming out, another Del Toro one, so kind of a good little intro to him. A movie that I think some people appreciate, but it's not like a big, horror staple, really. Really what stood out to me, though, for this movie is I really, really like the effects. I think that the weird mimic creatures are very interesting monsters. I think Del Toro, once again, shines with that, as he often does with that. I think he also creates an awesome atmosphere, which is a big thing for me. Unfortunately, though, that's kind of where the positives end. I mean, really, Del Toro, like I said, effects, atmosphere, cool idea for a monster, enough to keep me intrigued with that. The movie has a few scares early on, but it's pretty generic. It's pretty silly. I think most of the characters are kind of underdeveloped or simplified. The acting's okay, but it ranges from mediocre to just silly. Really, if it wasn't for just the uniqueness of the creature itself and how awesome it looked, and a few scares and strong atmosphere, it wouldn't be saved. I leave this one with a B-.
Okay. Yeah, I think the atmosphere is what kind of makes this movie. There's a real creepy vibe really throughout. And it's one of those movies that if you don't think about the science of it too much, maybe it could possibly exist in real life scenarios.
Yeah.
So that sort of gets your skin crawling a little bit. But it's a very familiar premise from 50s and 60s sci-fi shows or, monster movies of the week kind of thing. And I kind of liked that element of it. I mean, I sensed that that's what Del Toro was kind of going for.
Oh, yeah.
And I think he hit it home. So it is sort of cheesy to a degree, but I do think it's genuinely creepy as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that deep of a story. It's okay acted. I mean, there's some good people in here that are giving okay performances. But I think it works for what it is. I also leave Mimic with a B-. Justin?
So Joe and I have had a couple friendly sparring sessions over similar concept film The Relic. But strangely enough, despite studio issues and Del Toro's own personal disowning of the film, Mimic does a number of things I wish the latter film had done. To start, Mimic has a very all shots are legal mindset to its terror. No one is safe, and they make that abundantly clear probably
pretty early on.
Yeah, I was going to say, probably like 20 minutes in.
Yeah.
Yep, you're done.
It's not always scary, and in a couple moments it's actually kind of goofy, but I gotta give it to Del Toro for truly making use of limited sets and finding ways to make it downright chilling at times. Acting I wish was a little bit better, the story more or less could use some work, but I never found myself struggling to actually look at the monster, and he finds ways to use that restriction to his advantage for some of the best moments in the entire movie very early on. It's not perfect, but I gotta give it some credit for a very early start from Del Toro. I leave Mimic with a B- as well.
Is this one of his first?
No. It's one of his
Devil's Backbone, I think, was first.
Yeah, it's probably his first
Kronos, Devil's Backbone.
He did some movies in the early 90s before this. This was his first attempt at
I think this was his first American movie.
I would say first big mainstream one.
Okay.
That is familiar with us, but it's the first one I ever saw of his.
Sure.
So yeah, but I think it's good. I think you've got a good sense for his style here. I think it's enjoyable, but it's not perfect. I just really like the monster a lot.
Yeah, and you're right. The creep factor is high. The design is cool.
I think it's one of those examples of I liked it more when I was a kid and found it scary when I was younger. I'm enough a fan of the Mimic franchise that I have seen both sequels. So that should say something.
You poor unfortunate soul.
The second one's goofy but entertaining. The third one is a joke.
And Del Toro has nothing to do with either of those, right?
No.
Okay.
Though it's interesting, we did watch, I believe, the theatrical one. He had problems with this one, but he did release a director's cut later.
Oh,
so if you want to check it out at some point,
okay.
there were some modifications to it.
Well, I do think it's creepy, though. There were a few times in this movie I was like, ugh.
Oh, no,
the
subversive creepiness of the atmosphere is very good. That's other than the creature and effects themselves, it's the best thing about the movie that keeps you engaged. It's creepy, but it's not too horrifying.
No. But, I think a lot of mid to late 90s horror movies really had, the cheesy thing going. By that point, Freddy and Jason were both the comedy cut-ups of the day.
It's true.
And so I can respect that he tried to, it was a little bit cheesy, but more so, I think, for limited budget reasons than
anything else.
But
he made it work, and you're right. It does kind of harken back to the classic, monster movie, which we don't really have that much these days. It's ghost.
Right.
And then Gorefest. We need more monsters, and I've discussed this with a buddy Alex from the show, that there aren't as many original monster movies these days.
Yeah.
And this at least was one of those that I remembered. And Justin, are you disappointed I didn't run The Relic? Because it's a very similar concept that I do enjoy as well. I think it came out the same year. And
ironically enough, yeah.
Instead of bugs, it's lizard. But
no kidding.
Very similar done movie. I chose Mimic because I thought of the two, it's better.
It's definitely better.
But The Relic also, like the effects, like the atmosphere, love the monster.
No, there are good things about The Relic. It's just because of the technical errors, it ruined some of the potential it had.
Well, maybe that'll come up at some point in the future, but this is sort of the unofficial sister of The Relic.
Okay. Well, our entree into Horror Month. So, Joe, thanks for that. Next week will be Justin's pick. And last up on our show tonight is Bang the Drum Slowly for our Oscar A to Z, another De Niro film. This is a 1973 sports drama film nominated for just one award, and that's Best Supporting Actor for Vincent Gardenia for his portrayal of baseball manager Dutch Snell. In this movie, Michael Moriarty plays Henry Wiggin, a star pitcher for the fictional baseball team at the New York Mammoths, whose contract is up, so he not only holds out for more money, but for a clause that his best friend Bruce Pearson, played by young De Niro, and him are a package deal and must be signed together. Nobody knows that Bruce is dying except for Henry, which is why he wants to make the deal. Now, this film is generally highly regarded, but for me, slowly would be the key phrase from the title. At a mere 96 minutes, it easily feels like a 2-hour saga. And other than the relationship between Bruce and Henry, and some of the back and forth with the manager, and a few barbs by a receptionist woman, the movie does tend to drag. There are countless scenes focusing on this made-up game called Tag War.
Oh my God.
Which stands for the exciting game without any rules. And as there are no rules to the supposed game, the scenes fail to connect in any way because nothing the characters are talking about makes any sense. At one point, they're debating on what 15 and 15 equals, and neither of them come up with 30. One says it's 31, the other one says it's 32. I'm like, what are you guys even talking about?
There were a lot of scenes like that.
And so there's certainly some strong performances. De Niro's great here. Michael Moriarty's very well,
Classic,
very good.
Law and Order.
Yes, I knew his name from something. Mm-hmm. The dramatic scenes absolutely connect, but the problems certainly drop it down from being one of the greats. I leave Bang the Drum with a B-. Oh. Joe?
I have to confess that the pacing of this movie is pretty rough.
Well, how is it only 96 minutes?
Because I actually was interested in some of the conversations. Like I did like some of the political back and forth, kind of determining the contract and everything. And I liked the drama. I thought both of them were great. De Niro was great.
Yeah.
Even this early on.
Yeah, and I like the negotiation scenes as well. You're right.
Those were good. I did find that interesting, but it felt like it took forever. And I don't know. I guess it's because it was just like flat dialogue back and forth, and I guess that gets tedious. And then you're right. Some of this other stuff was a little cheesy and melodramatic, and that kind of brought it down for me too. I mean, I really did think that the story was genuine. I liked the performances. But it was missing something to really spice it up and kind of differentiate these scenes. The only thing they did were these really cheesy moments that I guess were kind of attempts at comedy.
That's what I took from it, but it certainly wasn't funny.
I don't know. Yeah, the tag war thing. At first I thought he said tug war, like tug of war. I'm like, you don't know how to play that. Okay, tag war. And I'm about Tech War by William Shatner at the show. I mean, that's a thing.
Yes.
That predates it a little, I guess. But, it was a very mixed bag. I liked some things about it, but God, this one was tough to get through. And I'll be with you. I'll B-, but it's on that line though. It's on that line.
I agree, Justin.
The best thing about slice of life character studies.
Oh no.
There's an air of authenticity. The worst thing about slice of life character studies. See the prior statement.
It's too real.
Bang the Drum Slowly's full of oddball characters, near incomprehensible sports lingo, and plenty of commentary in regards to the manipulative side of sports, which I can only hope that the concept of do these managers, these organizations actually care about the athletes will be a question that we'll hopefully be asking again in December. But that doesn't mean that the content is always the most prominent. It's often bogged down by a lot of needless scenes that I can see these people having, but they don't really hold any weight to the actual storyline.
Yeah, who cares?
Which makes it very quickly become painfully tedious. And a 96-minute movie, you could probably cut down to 75 minutes and not miss a beat.
Mm-hmm.
And alongside that, which really caused us to go down grade-wise to some extent, the movie pulls a straight-up Peter Jackson. There's at least 3 separate moments I could think of while watching that they could have ended on that would have held so much more weight than the ending they chose on. One would have been perfect and justified the title straight up. And yet it just keeps going.
I know.
And going.
I think they wanted to make sure it was more than 90 minutes, so they kept these
so get
few
nominated.
Scenes at the end, and it's like, because the Academy loves a long movie.
Well, they would get one.
Yeah.
Short, long movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But this is a movie that had plenty of potential, an interesting setup, but just gets bogged down by way too many unnecessary things. I'm with you, gentlemen. I leave Bang the Drum Slowly with a B-.
Oh.
Many same grades this episode. We don't get that too often. Same grade.
Same grade.
Yeah, I don't understand this movie.
Did you think it was a little on the nose at the beginning where the movie's called Bang the Drum Slowly, and they do in fact have drums banging
that
slowly.
Was kind of annoying.
And I was like,
we got it.
Just a little
really?
bit.
Yeah.
Didn't need that.
Yeah, I don't know. I think the word is tedium. Like, you have all these scenes that they're not crucial. They're very realistic and believable, like you said, Justin, but does that mean that they translate to cinematic?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they add nothing to the general story.
No. It's padding.
It's padding. And I feel like if your movie needs this much padding, maybe you need to flesh out your characters a little bit more. Give us some of the background on why these guys are so close.
I was wondering that too.
Why are they playing tag war? How does this relate to the storyline?
No, stop saying tag war.
Sorry.
I can't do that anymore.
It's the game with no rules. Then how do you play it?
You can't.
And then like
15. I got 15. I got 15. Well, that's 32. What are you talking about?
I think
it made no sense.
I guess that was the point.
I guess so, but it doesn't need to be in this movie. Like I said, give these characters more background. Tell us why they're so close. What happened? Mm-hmm. Did they grow up together? Did they? I don't know.
From the opening scene, he sounded like he didn't really like him that much.
Yeah, like it was surprising in the negotiation scene where he's like, well, he's got to
stay
come with
me. And it's just like, but you said that he chews tobacco a lot and he pees in the sink. Mm-hmm. You didn't really like being with him. So what changed? Did you feel bad for him because of the disease? It has to be more than that, right?
It feels like we lost a scene or two in there.
Yeah, how about add those scenes and
how to play that tag war?
That's crucial.
It's very crucial. Never caught on.
Not the American pastime, no.
Not past 1973, no, apparently.
Nope. All right, well, that's going to do it for the show. First and foremost, we have to thank our listeners. We're now more than 100 subscribers, so can't thank you guys enough for the support. Love hearing your comments. Get the listener's choice selections to us every so often. We have a few that we'll be getting to here soon, but always room for more on that side. And we have Boldly Going. If you want to support us over on Joe's channel, we're doing the Star Trek wrap-ups weekly on the various Star Trek series. And you can check out our Facebook group, Film Fanatics with an exclamation point, and that has our 5-word reviews weekly, as well as the Twitter feed at Film Fanatics Pod. So thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you back here next time. Bye!